EA Play was this past weekend. We knew there was going to be some news coming out on NBA Live 18, little glimpses of what to expect. And Ben, I guess we got some pretty good and exciting news out of it.
Oh yeah, and yeah, news has been waiting a while for, so and we finally got an answer to what the one is.
Yeah, we do know what the one is, and the one is the new single-player career mode that is making its debut in NBA Live 18, and basically it encompasses, the way I've been describing it in the wiki articles and on the news post as well, is that it basically encompasses both the league and the streets. Streetball, there's the league and the streets. You can carve out your legacy in both arenas, so to speak. And the other thing that I'm quite pleased to see, and we'll get back to it in another topic that we're going to talk about a little later after we cover the news, is that there's no storyline as such. That it's a dynamic experience, as they put it, where you create your own legacy. And I do like that, because it seems, even though they're doing some new stuff with the mode, that seems more traditional. And I like that idea that you can not be pigeonholed into a story.
Yeah, that adds that element of freedom, and in terms of people who like content creators, whether it be YouTube or Twitch or even forum and Dynasty stuff, forums and that, this could be a way where you can still have an element of a unique story compared to another user in that sense. So it's not 95 or we'll say 90 to 95% the same story for every user and that sort of thing in terms of sequence of things or anything like that. So, and you get a little bit more leeway in where you can go and define it more in terms of especially if you focus on the streets parts and how you're how you hype and all that stuff and legendary status, and that becomes and then obviously in the NBA. So, you got a couple of varied ways to be able to really bring your character story to life in that sense. And there's some really cool tidbits that you'll learn later on about that as well.
And it's gameplay driven, which is what I like about it as well. That the story comes from what you're doing with the game rather than cutscenes. And as much as I actually did like the story in 2K17, I thought it was much better done, especially because it wasn't railroaded into just the 8 or 9 games from the rookie season, and
the character wasn't a whiny little.
The character wasn't whiny. The character was kind of one size fits all, so to speak. If you obviously Spike Lee wrote that story with the main character being African American in mind, which is fine, obviously, but. For those of us who are pasty white gentlemen like myself, we looks like the world's worst casting decision when we in the Live and Dream joint. So
we've heard of whitewashing in Hollywood in terms of like, but
that's taken to the extreme in that situation. So they did a much better job in 2K17, and I'm sure hopefully they'll do another job along those lines in 2K18. But as far as EA, I am glad they're doing something different and not going for the story-driven approach and letting you tell the story through the gameplay and have this the connection. One thing that I have seen people were a bit concerned was the idea that it's going to force you to do both. But as I understand, you can still just focus on the league if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, that's one thing you can do. So there are obviously some things you can benefit from doing both in that sense, but yeah, you can focus on which direction you want to take in that sense. So there's that element of freedom, and both. If you sort of focus on the streets more, you can sort of build your story more that way.
Yeah.
Or if you focus on the NBA, you can entirely or more so you can then focus your story becomes more driven that way in that sense. So yeah, there's some cool stuff in regards to that.
And that's definitely a great idea as well. I mean, we've discussed our disappointment with my career, how you can't get over 95 overall unless you go in and level up your My Park rep, which I understand what 2K is doing there, but I'm not a fan of it because it's forcing people to play a mode they don't necessarily want, especially since you're talking about my career, which is offline, even though it does have online elements as far as the VC that you can buy if you want to do microtransactions, the content for the wardrobe, etc., is online, and also it has online elements basically, but the gameplay itself in my career is offline. But the connected experience to Pro-Am and My Park, not everybody wants that. So to have that separation or the ability to forego the streets if you want to focus on the league or vice versa. It's definitely a great way to do it.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So
But I admit, like, in terms of, like, I'm hoping that at one stage they can do something like what looks to be um, like FIFA's story mode, and even what Madden, given that hearing that Madden's story is actually was 4 years in development, and that has a lot of branching off and a lot of choicing and all that stuff. So I'm hoping that there can be an element of that, where obviously not this year, obviously, but maybe within the next year or two, kind of thing, that they incorporate, so that there can be that choice and option of how you want to sort of go about it.
no, there's merit in that approach, and I think
It'll be like 2K's my GM and my league, and in that sort of sense. I hope there's kind of the two offerings. So
yeah, I think both games, if you're going to do that, have the gameplay driven mode and the story driven mode. Absolutely, would be a great way to do it. And there is merit in the story driven approach. I think 2K has to be commended for as I said before, the production values of what they've done with the My Career stories. It's just some of the concepts haven't been great, which is why I'm glad that Live is going in the different direction, at least for now. Something that is sure to be noted is that there are live events that will be involved with the one, and interestingly, solo, co-op, and multiplayer challenges. So that's pretty cool.
yeah, there's a lot of diversity in it. That's for sure.
And they've also released some information on the playstyles. Playstyles very similar to the My Player archetypes as far as the different styles of player, as the name would suggest. And they put up the information on the site, which is a great information to have this early in the stage, especially because I believe the EA Play demo only had a few of the playstyles available.
Yeah, there was three. There was one from basically like a point guard or a guard's moments, then like a wingman, and then
the big man.
Yeah. So yeah, and that was just designed to give everyone a taste of what's coming in. But all up, there is. Sorry, you don't mind me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So there's 12 12 types of play styles all up, and
divided into three main categories, as you said, guard, wing, and big.
Yeah, and each one obviously has its strengths and weaknesses, and then they'll have its primary and secondary skill sets, and then there's also traits, and these traits are interchangeable. In obviously you got to sort of earn them in that, but so that way, what can be described as a chess game, especially if you're playing we'll take for instance with a pro-am, when you're playing on the live run events and all that stuff, you can you can counter and all that stuff what your opponent is. You can see their attributes and you can see yours, and you can go, all right, this person might be say for example a LeBron type player, so you might go, all right, well, my player's like a Kawhi Leonard, so I might want to try and make him be more. In this game, I need him to be more of a defensive stopper in that sense, to focus on LeBron. So you might sacrifice an element of his scoring ability of one of his traits to more focus on defense. Whereas, LeBron, you might want him to, you might notice a change in that sort of thing, or you might see that, okay, so I've got a defender, so I need to really try and amp up my play scoring, scoring ability or something like that, or, attacking the ring kind of stuff. So, there's that whole chess game element in that sort of sense. So, yeah, I think that's cool, and it doesn't entirely pigeonhole your player to where you're only able to play one way. It allows you to make your player a little bit more versatile and customizable in adjusting for certain games, where even in the NBA element, you'll need to, depending on who you're going up against, your role in the game might be slightly different. So you can prepare yourself for that. So that's one really cool thing I thought.
Yeah, and looking at the traits, as I understand it, they kind of work similar to badges in my career, and I guess 2K in general. Maybe the best way of describing it at the moment. And then you've got the primary and secondary skills, the sort of the main talents as far as the ratings are concerned, and they've got some example players for all the play styles there, and also they mentioned the signature abilities, things like with the point shooter, with Stephen Curry being the example there. give and take. Getting an assist gives you a stackable boost to your 3-point shooting ability. Obviously that's a good idea as well. So you've got these different abilities, and do we know whether they also carry over to the regular to NBA players as well, or is this just the one style at the moment?
In terms of the play, like this is when you're creating your player and all that stuff.
I mean, as far as like with the NBA players that are
okay.
they're in the game, do they also have these? Because with 2K, you've got the badges and everything for regular players as well as your my player. Whereas this
I think these circumstances are taken into account with when they were doing the player stuff. I can't remember 100%, but I'd imagine that they'd have an element of this, so that way, obviously when they're trying to define and break each player down in terms of attributes and skills and on their own in that sense, and for ratings and that. So I'm assume they'd have a form of it for each player, obviously, especially given that they've got example players and all that stuff. So
player DNA, the information from Synergy Sports Technology and everything. So
yeah,
that'll be something to find out how that works with that. But looking at the play styles, you mentioned the balance and sort of versatility, and that's the same thing that struck me when I saw all these play styles for the first time and going down. I've also added them to our wiki. You can keep up with all the NBA Live 18 news in the wiki as well as on the main page in the forum for a resource there. Just looking at them now, going down the page, it just seems that they are so much more balanced than the my player archetypes. If you do want to be that point shooter, you don't have to sacrifice the 3-point shooting for playmaking abilities or playmaking for 3-point shooting. And there's in fact, the playmaker is the more balanced style in NBA Live. It's probably the most balanced point guard style in NBA 2K17 as well. But looking at it, all the skills they have, the primary skills, the secondary skills, the traits, and even the signature abilities that each play style has, they're very apt. They're very accurate, I think, and taking the scope of those players, that you don't have these one-dimensional players. So I think from the looks of it, I mean, it remains to be seen how it plays out across all, and whether people will exploit it, because it's tough to make a system that people won't exploit at all. But there does seem to be that balance there and that versatility, that you don't have to lock yourself into an archetype, or in this case, a play style that's inappropriate and too limiting.
Yeah, I thought it was well thought out, the idea of it. And it looks like they've really thought it out properly, and it's definitely different. It's not a copy and paste situation like what 2K have done. So I think it's its own unique style in terms of balancing on bringing different play styles and having the option to select what kind of style you want to be. Whereas yes, we've got a couple of different options in that in 2K, but very narrow choice in a lot of things, and in terms of what you could choose. And then the fact, like in taking this case with the trait element, how it allows you to interchange it and select it and for each game that you play, definitely for me adds that level of versatility and not stuck. It's not stuck in that one entire form in a lot of ways, where it's very one-dimensional in that sense. So upon seeing all this information, hearing it and all that stuff, what I did, and that it was one thing that definitely stuck out. I was like, okay, this seems really cool and well thought out for what I thought.
It seems like a really solid approach to the career mode. So I'm looking forward to it and checking out what it's going to be all about. Of course, we'll be able to get a head start on the career mode as of August. There's going to be a demo coming, and just like the live Pro-Am content in the previous, and the career content, I believe, in the NBA Live 16 demo, the NBA Live 18 demo, your progress will be able to carry over to the full version. That's becoming a standard feature these days, and it's really great, so you don't have to start again from scratch. And obviously 2K did it with the Prelude last year, and that it was a concept that worked, I thought, with 2K. So I think that's definitely an idea that Live probably looked at that and saw the success, and their own Live 16 demo, of course. So that's great that they're doing that. The one sounds very promising. Not career modes aren't for everyone, so we'll have to see what else is in the game. More on that in a sec. But yeah, it sounds very solid what they've done with all of that stuff. The other thing, of course, is how the game feels on the sticks, and all of the impressions coming out of out of EA Play. We've seen a little bit of footage. They've released a couple of trailers, obviously, for the one, and which have had the gameplay, the cinematic gameplay again. But pretty much everyone who's played the game at the event came away pretty impressed and saying this is day and night as far as Live 16 and Live 18 are concerned, which is what we wanted and what we wanted to hear. And we do know that the game is still on the Ignite engine. Apparently, transferring across to Frostbite is a lengthy process, and they've already taken the time to push the game back and work on it as they have. So we don't want to see more delays or more problems with the transition. I guess we'll see that maybe at sometime in the future. But from what people are saying, that it looks and feels so much better when you're actually there on the sticks to Live 16, which is obviously very encouraging, especially after there was some concern after that first trailer. But yeah, everything coming out of EA Play has been very positive.
Yeah, and I'm grateful for that. And seeing how the positive response from it, like even a tweet from OS, saying, so EA Play is over, and the big thing for me is still how good NBA Live 18 is. The devs and game changers working on have something big there. So that for me was a huge thing, and seeing like people's responses to it, and one person like the Kid Kuda, he goes, "I swear it's so fun. I got home and started thinking of video ideas, but all I could think about was getting my hands on Live again." So that is very positive in its own way, and the fact that the community is very positively responding positively to it, which is cool. So
and I guess as we want to see Live ultimately get the same kind of depth as 2K as far as all the modes are concerned and roster editing and all that stuff. We want to see that. But if what the experience that is in the game, sometimes we focus on what's not in the game, and for good reason at times, but if what is there is really enjoyable and keeps you hooked, then that's obviously means a great base for the game, and that means that it's got some great foundation to build on. So you can add that stuff, maybe post-release, certainly in the next release, but if what they deliver is a fun experience that keeps you hooked and shows that improvement, then that game is still a success, and that's what it sounds like it's shaping up to be. So I'm feeling very optimistic after hearing, you see things from cinematic angles, but then you see people who got on the sticks and you say, in previous years, it's still a bit stiff, it's a bit this, it's a bit that. But to hear that it's just night and day, and to hear that there's deeper controls and things like that, they haven't released all the information on that as yet, but it just sounds very promising all around. And I'm having wanting to see Live make that comeback and to have those two viable options on the market. It's just really good to hear. It's great to hear, in fact.
Yeah, and all the hard work that they've done, in particular the last 2 years, especially taking last year off, or in terms of not releasing.
Yep.
It looks like it is really paying off. Like, I admit, like when we started hearing, that it was going to sort of have that extra time, and I was like, I really hope they don't waste the opportunity like they did after the whole Elite 11 situation,
where the team was rebuilt and they took the time off, but it wasn't developing the assets and
and they spent a lot of time looking at and testing like Elite 11 and trying to build from there, and it was like, it was wasted opportunity in that sense.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It doesn't sound like that's happened at all, and that's fantastic.
And as far as some of the other things go, there has been whispers coming out of the event that at the moment at least there's no roster editing. I don't have 100% confirmation on that, but it sounds like it might be the case. But at the same time, I've also heard that it's something that they're really working on. So if they can get it into the game, because obviously they still have time, if they can get into the game, or as I said on a previous show, if they could do it post-release, like they did with the shoot-around in Live 14, that would be big if they could bring it into the game as well this year. So, I mean, fingers crossed that something positive can be done there, because I know that's a big deal. And for me too, but I know for a lot of people that's it's kind of like a game breaker. It's a make or break as far as whether they'll invest in it. So if they can do that, so much the better. Yeah,
for sure. And, I understand that, they wanted to focus on make sure they have that base of solid foundation. We know they've kind of, stressed about that between the whole Lives 14, 15, and 16, but it really sounds like from all the comments and that from the EA players, like it's there now. So in terms of that foundation is there. So I think now they're getting close to the stage where it'd be about the whole depth and features and like all that set. So fingers crossed that that's the case. So.
It's the next step, I guess. And speaking of impressions, we're hoping to get Stephen, the Live King, on the show at some point. Just a matter of there's a time difference to line up as far as during the week and whatever, so we can get a segment with him. Hopefully, our next week's show, we'll see what we can tee up. I've been chatting with him, see what we can set up as far as that's concerned, because he was at the event and he had positive impressions. He's, as you know, as the OS reps came away very impressed. Tiko Istakori, I met him at a previous event, very cool guy and YouTuber. He came away and he's always very straight with his opinions. These were not fanboys giving opinions. These are people who have been openly critical, not unfairly critical, but they've called a spade when something that has sucked or hasn't been up to expectations. This isn't hype. This is people whose opinions you can trust, and that's the other great thing, is that it's not just smoke and mirrors and people blowing smoke. It is people that you can trust giving these positive impressions. So that's why you feel so optimistic coming out of the event.
Yeah.
There's also a preliminary features list came out on the site. It mentions the usual enhancements to gameplay, which is nice to see. Also mentions the franchise experience, so that's back. Doesn't give a lot of information about that at the moment. It actually says franchise and not Dynasty, so that's interesting. Whether they've actually rebranded it or not. Franchise was the original name from 2000 2003, then they went to Dynasty. Frankly, I don't care what they call it as long as it's a nice, solid experience, which they can build on. What's in a name, as Shakespeare once wrote. But I thought that was interesting to note that they called it that. New designs for the Ultimate Team cards. There's a screenshot up there that you can see. So all the staples are kind of going to be in the game as well. And I think they're going to talk a bit more about online stuff as well, and live Pro-Am. The Drew League, of course. The Drew League is part of the one as well, that you can go to the Drew League and hone your abilities as well.
Yeah, so there's sort of, I guess, a 3-in-1 sort of element with the whole one, in terms of, the Streets, Drew League, which is, I guess, sort of a cross between the NBA and the league and that sort of thing.
And a different tie to the Pro-Am aspect, because there is the authentic Pro-Am venue as well. And there's Rucker Park, as we saw in the screenshots, which look fantastic.
And in one of the interviews in the interview with Shop, they mentioned that even just up until a couple of days ago before EA Play, they added a change to the Venice Court because they had just repainted it freshly with adding some like new color and lines to it.
That's
and all
pretty
that.
cool, yeah.
And so they made that change, and that's something that they stated that they can do.
I guess even post
release, yeah. So throughout the year and that. So that was cool news in terms of that. So yeah.
So definitely some great news there. It sounds like a really strong, well-rounded experience, which is what we wanted to see. So obviously we want to see that deeper franchise or dynasty mode. We want to see the roster editing, and hopefully we can see it. But to hear that the gameplay is going so well and that they are starting to really flesh out the product, a thumbs up, and I can't wait to get the hands on the demo of. Or if they want to fly me out over there again, I certainly wouldn't. I wouldn't turn that opportunity down, as they did for me in 2015 with Live 16. Love to do that. I think the people we know at EA are aware that we'd certainly be up for that if the opportunity arises. But
for sure.
In the meantime, of course, the demo is dropping in August, so more information right around the corner, and hopefully some more good news. But everything so far has been pretty good news for EA Play, and I think a very successful showing for the game, the most successful in years. So, and I'm sure that all the guys and girls at EA are very happy about that.
Yeah, it'd be reward for all their hard work the last few years in really focusing and in getting this game to where it needs to be in that. So yeah,
and ultimately good news for us gamers, because we do have hopefully those two viable options on the market, and which will drive both games to do bigger and better things. So hopefully good times ahead. Hopefully once again a great time to be a basketball gamer once more. Just a shame about those PC rumors being false, isn't it?
Yeah, but yeah, I like when I heard the rumors, I was like, as hopeful as I was, realistically, I was like,
probably not. Yeah,
I think they'll want to build like we stated, build that foundation first, get the game right, and then obviously depending on sales, that's probably when it can, shift.
Expand the platforms, yeah. So fingers crossed, and if Live 18 is as good a step forward as it may be shaping up to be, who knows what the future will bring. But in the meantime, hopefully more good news around the corner for NBA Live 18.
And I hope that the game is supported and all that stuff in terms of the community in that, and because that again, that will hopefully bring the success to it and coming back to PC in that sense. So
definitely.
Yeah.